You won't do Keith Gardner.
We live.
At this time, I'm going to call the Friday, March 28, 2025 public hearing / meeting, called meeting of Banks County Board of Commissioners to order. Have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Keith?
Aye.
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 All right, next up, public hearing on resolution to extend an existing moratorium on acceptance of applications for rezoning to the R2 residential multifamily district identified in Article 7B, the M1 industrial district, and the planned unit development district in of the Banks County zoning ordinance. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second to open public hearing. Keith?
Aye.
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 All right, so I'm gonna read the resolution, and maybe somebody will be here for public comment by the time we do that. All right, a resolution of the Banks County Board of Commissioners extending an existing moratorium on acceptance of applications for rezoning to the R2 residential multifamily district, the M1 industrial district, and the planned unit development district of the Banks County zoning resolution. Whereas the Banks County Board of Commissioners is the governing body of the county and therefore is responsible for regulating development through zoning as well as providing appropriate public infrastructure and services to best serve the public interest, including but not limited to such infrastructure and services associated with current and future development within the county. And whereas the Banks County zoning resolution regulates the use of property located in Banks County, Georgia. And whereas Article 7B of the zoning resolution defines R2 residential multifamily as a zoning district designed for higher density multifamily development served by public water and sewerage facilities. And whereas Article 10 of the zoning resolution defines M1 industrial as a zoning district that requires a minimum of 2 acres and allows industrial operations that may be in proximity to residential and other districts. And whereas Article 20 of the zoning resolution defines a planned unit development as a zoning district that may provide for a mix of residential, office, commercial, and industrial, which further requires a minimum site area of 50 contiguous acres. And whereas the board has become concerned that the pace of development within the county may outpace the ability of the county to provide sufficient infrastructure and services under the current financial circumstances. And whereas the board desires that the county's Planning and Development Department, Planning Commission, and Public Utilities consider and formulate proposed changes to the standards, guidelines, and requirements for the development of property, mixed-use zoning, R2, M1, and the PUD zoning districts. And whereas the board is considering whether to retain and consult with an organization or expert on managing the county's current water resources and fiscally responsible options for expanding its water resources and water delivery system, which is necessary for stable and balanced growth. And whereas the board desires that the county's Planning and Development Department work with the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission to discuss whether amendments should be made to the county's comprehensive plan due to the inadequacies of the county's existing public utilities and infrastructure. And whereas the board desires to consider amendments to the zoning resolution with respect to the development of property in the R2, M1, and PUD zoning districts in an effort to create an appropriate balance between future development and public utility and infrastructure needs. And whereas the board desires to delay further rezonings and or land use changes in the R2, M1, and PUD zoning districts until it receives and considers the recommendations from the county's Planning and Development Department, Planning Commission, Public Utilities, the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission, and any consultants or experts retained by the county. And whereas on February 28, 2025, the board adopted a temporary moratorium barring through March 30th, 2025, the acceptance of applications for rezoning to the R2, M1, or PUD zoning districts in the zoning resolution. And whereas March 28, 2025, the board conducted a public hearing to consider the possible extension of the moratorium. And whereas the board finds extending the existing moratorium barring the acceptance of applications for rezoning to the R2, M1, or PUD zoning districts until September 24th, 2025, to be reasonably necessary, the least restrictive means available, and a reasonable exercise of the county's police power and in the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Banks County, Georgia as follows. The statements set forth in the preamble are incorporated herein by reference and constitute a material part of this resolution, and the Banks County Board of Commissioners does hereby extend the existing moratorium barring the acceptance of applications for rezoning to the R2, M1, or PUD zoning districts until September 24, 2025. The purpose of this moratorium is to allow the county adequate time to consider recommendations as to management and improvement of utility and infrastructure deficiencies and potential amendments to the zoning resolution that may alter or change the policies, standards, guidelines, and requirements for R2, M1, or PUD zoning, and the moratorium extended by this resolution shall terminate on the earliest date of September 24th, 2025, or approval by the Banks County Board of Commissioners of an additional moratorium after a public hearing, or board action terminating the moratorium. This resolution shall be effective upon a majority vote of the Board of Commissioners. So resolved this 28th day of March, 2025, the public's health, safety, and welfare demanding it. So at this time, we'll open it up for anyone who would like to speak in favor of this resolution. Hearing none, would anyone like to speak in opposition of this resolution? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion, second, close the public hearing. Keith?
Aye.
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 So this is basically just a resolution to extend the moratorium till we can get a plan on water and let us evaluate code and comprehensive plan to make sure it fits the situation we're in.
I make a motion to extend the moratorium.
I second.
For 180 days.
For September 21.
Yep. Got a motion by Danny to extend the moratorium until the
September 21.
for 180 days. Second by Chris. Any discussion? Keith?
Aye.
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 Anything else y'all like to bring before the board? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. Keith?
Aye.
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 We're adjourned.
Is this just a copy of the resolution?
Yeah.